Guys, this is a video to respond to some of the latest news regarding Anthony Joshua. It's been reported in numerous media outlets, some discussing about Anthony Joshua's next fight, the date, the venue, etc. And it's confirmed, amongst other places, by a tweet that I'm just going to read out to you on my phone. The tweet comes from the official account of Sky Sports News HQ. And the tweet says, Anthony Joshua's next bout will be on November 26th. Eddie Hearn has confirmed, and it will not be at London's O2. More on Sky Sports News HQ. So, interesting. Several bits of news there. Confirmed fight, 26th of November, not at London's O2. Anthony Joshua, as you guys will be aware, currently holds the IBF version of the World Heavyweight title. So we know that Anthony Joshua's opponent is going to be from that IBF top 15. He's going to have to select an opponent out of that list. And the idea that it's not at London's O2 potentially gives us some hints as to who that may or may not be. And I think that's what we're going to discuss in this video, like some potential opponents and the pros and cons and the likelihood of that. Now, when the tweet went out, I saw a mixed reaction from the Twitter faithful. Some of them were saying this is a bad sign. This means it's going to be a very small fight. The fact that it's not going to be at the O2 means it's going to be a crap opponent. I completely disagree with that analysis because Anthony Joshua could fight any person. Anthony Joshua could fight Matt Legg. Shout out to the Matt Legg fans out there. He could fight Matt Legg the rematch and it would sell out London's O2. Put simply, Anthony Joshua hitting the bag could probably sell out London's O2 and sell 200,000 pay-per-views the way the casual fans have bought into him at present. So I don't take this as a sign that it's going to be a lesser opponent. One of the things that did occur to me was that it could be an international opponent. Eddie Hearn's talked for some time about trying to build Anthony Joshua up internationally. We know there was the suggestion some time ago that potentially in future he could fight in China. I think the likelihood of a fight in America is more and more likely. Hearn seems very conscious to build him up over there. Clearly it's a huge market, and Showtime seems to have taken a big interest in him of late. If we look at the top 15 list, there's a few names who stand out. Bermain Stavern, I know he's maybe not American, I think he's from Haiti, but certainly a big name over there, former world champion. He could potentially be an opponent, although we know he's got another fight with Povetkin, which may make negotiating with him more difficult as he's got more than one option on the table. Jarrell Miller, who's in the IBF top 15. Jarrell Miller's coming off a career-high performance in knocking out Fred Cassie, or maybe not knocking him out, but in stopping Fred Cassie. So that's certainly an opponent. Andy Ruiz, I believe, doesn't have anyone on the register at present, so another potential opponent from the IBF top 15. So I certainly think that opportunity of him going abroad and fighting that sort of period of time, November the 26th, is very possible. Very possible. If we look at Joshua's most recent opponents, Charles Martin and Dominic Breazeale, they've both been American fighters. He's had exposure internationally. He's been broadcast on American TV. Don't be surprised if Eddie Hearn looks to continue to build that momentum and try and crack that market by putting Anthony Joshua over in the States in a big fight. So that's one of the possibilities. If we look at some of the other names who've been linked with Anthony Joshua, I think we can conclusively say the Hughie Fury fight seems to be off the cards. That's a fight that's been rumoured fairly heavily, but due to the seemingly unknown situation with Hughie Fury and whether he may or may not still be under some sort of investigations for performance-enhancing drug claims, it's going to be difficult for that fight to get made. Put simply, it's too big a risk to the promoter in Eddie Hearn to make a fight of that nature. And we don't really know what the situation with the Furies is right now, but one thing that does seem to be fact is that they will go before some sort of hearing in November. So very possible Eddie Hearn won't be in a position to make that fight. The Joseph Parker fight is a possibility, definitely. The only concern with that fight is Parker's fighting Dimitrenko in October, so it would be a very, very, very swift turnaround for Parker to go straight from Dimitrenko to Anthony Joshua. Firstly, Parker may want a longer break than that. Secondly, you've always got a risk. What if Parker loses the fight? What if Parker wins the fight but hurts his hand? What if Parker wins the fight and gets a cut? These are all possibilities in the fight game. So it's a big risk to make a fight of that nature and of that magnitude when Parker's got another fight in the interim. It exposes you and your product to so much more risk. And for that reason, I don't think it's going to be Joseph Parker. I also don't think it's going to be Hughie Fury, because the Hearns, let's not forget, come from an accountancy background, and they're people who do the figures, work out the maths, work out the probability, and make their business based on that. And for me, if you look at the likes of Hughie Fury, Joseph Parker, there's other factors outside of your control there that means that they're riskier matches. So I don't see either of those fights happening. If we look at the other matchups, Johan de Paul, certainly a solid option, coming off a big win against Hellenius. Obviously would draw comparators to the Deontay Wilder fight if Joshua could stop DePaul before Wilder did. DePaul gave Wilder some problems. DePaul could also be semi-marketable to the US audience. Obviously they're somewhat familiar with him from his fight with Anthony Joshua. So the Johan DePaul fight isn't out of the question. The fact that it's not in London makes me wonder, is David Price more of an option? We've recently seen that David Price fight start to get more and more and more hyped up. Could that be a big fight in Liverpool? Could it be a fight in Manchester perhaps? David Price versus Anthony Joshua. Would they be inclined to make a fight like that up north? It's very possible. The other name that should be thrown into the mix, and I guess there's two other names. There's Kubrat Pulev, which I've never seen as the most realistic of fight. I think Kubrat Pulev, I'm not saying he beats Joshua. Joshua's a favourite in the matchup. Joshua's got more power. Pulev's been knocked out before, etc. Pulev's the smaller man. But Pulev's a dangerous, dangerous fighter for me. Very, very good jab, very good technically, and he'd be a real step up. So I'm not 100% sure the Pulev fight is that attractive in terms of risk or reward. He's not a name that's known to the casual fans. But David Haye is another name that comes to mind. We heard a lot of talk about David Haye versus Shannon Briggs. We heard a hell of a lot of talk about David Haye versus Tony Bellew. Both of those fights have gone mysteriously quiet. Mysteriously quiet. And it seemed unlike Haye to disappear off the scene so much, He was building the hype, building the fight. There was comeback fight. He was getting all over TV. The hype was building. Now he seems to have taken a break. He seems to have dropped off the map ever so slightly. And you wonder why. If he was building up a comeback, wouldn't he be enjoying the hype and building the hype of those matchups with Shannon Briggs and Tony Bellew? You just wonder if something's going on behind the scenes. I heard one person say perhaps the Millennium Stadium against David Haye with the roof closed. A stadium fight like that. Is that an option? And I guess it's a possibility. That's a huge, huge, huge fight. And it would be a blockbuster for both men in terms of the money, in terms of the ticket sales, in terms of the pay-per-view sales. So, yeah, I guess that's a possibility. My ultimate inclination is that David Haye and Kubrat Pulev are both steps up, dramatic steps up. They're fighters who I view as a real level above the likes of Charles Martin, Dominic Breazeale and Dillian White. So you wonder if someone like Eddie Hearn, who knows how to manage a fighter and who at times can be seen as risk averse, would want to propel Joshua straight from a Dominic Breazeale matchup to one of those fights. They're interesting fights. I think it's unlikely. I think the Hughie Fury fight and the Joseph Parker fight, they're both unlikely because there's other risk factors there with Hughie's performance-enhancing drugs inquiry and Joseph Parker's fight with Dimitrenko. So I think those ones will be given the sidestep. But Main Stavern, let's be honest, Don King has a reputation as being a difficult man to negotiate with. He may be even more difficult to negotiate with now Bermain Stavern has a WBC shot against Alexander Povetkin. So perhaps, if we look at the most solid options, we have a shortlist of Johan de Paul, David Price, and a fight in the US against the likes of a Andy Ruiz or a Jarrell Miller. I think Jarrell Miller's a possibility. Very, very marketable. A real good talker, real good personality. Coming off a big win against Fred Cassie. Huge momentum, and could potentially be seen as an easy mark for Joshua based on the fact that he looks so out of shape physically, and I think he weighed in at 21 stone for his recent matchup. Don't rule out Jarrell Miller. That would be a fight that would sell very well in America and really help to build his name out there. The fact that Jarrell Miller's undefeated and got so much momentum behind him at present. You know, so those are the possibilities. Andy Ruiz, another possibility. If I'm honest, for me, I think David Price is a realistic option. I really do. I think Hearn knows that a big domestic heavyweight fight, 2 Olympians, 2 big guys, 2 big punchers, that will sell. And I could see him doing that in Liverpool or Manchester. Jarrell Miller in the States, I could see that happening. I really could. Really could. I think they're very conscious of that American market, and I think Joshua was conscious of it. I think those guys are possibilities. Those would be my 2 front runners at this stage, David Price and Jarrell Miller. Certainly don't rule out Andy Ruiz. Certainly don't rule out Johan de Parker and Hughie Fury. I'm borderline ruling them out. Bermain Stavern, Pulev, David Haye. Those guys are all options, but they wouldn't be the ones I'd pick as the most likely. What will Eddie Hearn do? Could it be a venue up north? Could it be a stadium, maybe like the Millennium Stadium where you could close the roof? Or could it even be abroad in the States? Let me know your thoughts, people. Give me your predictions in the comments section below. Give me your prediction on venue, give me your prediction on opponent, and how do you see all of those fights going? Who would you most like to see Joshua in with? Who do you think we will see him in with? Let me know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed the discussion, please hit the thumbs up button to support the channel. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe. Do subscribe if you haven't done before as well. Many thanks for watching, guys. As always, I do appreciate it.